Welcome back to my channel. If you'd like to win 60 minutes of one-on-one coaching with me, comment below "it is done." Winners are announced every week. In this video, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, a little bit more spiritual, esoteric, woo-woo, perhaps. Although I'm starting to really love that kind of area and exploring that in my life. And so what I'm talking about is my amazing past life regression experience, also known as quantum healing hypnosis therapy, pioneered by Dolores. Perhaps you've heard of her. She's an amazing woman and an inspiration to me. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is not just because it's some cool experience that might interest you, but because it's had profound healing effects on me, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And through that process, it's helped me manifest more powerfully and also gain a greater relationship and emergence with my higher self. So that's the purpose of this, is it relates to how this process is not only interesting, but it can help you directly manifest that which you want, your desires, your dream life. And how it can help you anchor in more love, joy, peace, and bliss in the here and now along that journey. So nonetheless, before we go on, I really appreciate your open-mindedness. I remember when I heard about past lives and all of this kind of stuff, it was quite overwhelming. A little bit too much for me at the time. Certainly not to partake in it. That was definitely not going to happen. And eventually you come a long way with these things and you become so open-minded and so interested in all of this kind of amazing knowledge and practices that eventually it will fall into your life at the right time when it most resonates with you. So there's no pressure to actually do this at all, but simply enjoy my experience, at the very least, I hope. Okay, so what is this process? What is a past life regression, briefly? Or what is quantum healing hypnosis therapy? So it's a kind of a process of hypnosis. So when you do a natural meditative tape and you go in and you kind of imagine yourself in a peaceful place and you go into this kind of deep level of relaxation, you go on an enchanting journey of visualizing various things, and you can relax and deal with parts of your subconscious, heal yourself, connect with your higher self, download insights about your purpose, etc. In fact, there's a million of these kind of meditations and subliminal affirmation kind of videos on YouTube. But the interesting thing about this therapy and what Dolores found when she was kind of pioneering all this is that there's a deeper level of trance or hypnosis that you can go into, a deeper sort of meditative state in which the conscious mind, the sense of a separate self that's often with us from day to day, can kind of almost evaporate or get very, very far out of the picture so that nothing's obscuring us between the higher self and the depths of our subconscious. And so this level is called the somnambulistic level of hypnosis. And it's quite a deep state. And so as Dolores was taking tens of thousands of people into this state, she would find them recalling various vivid experiences, almost a direct state of consciousness, awareness of past lives on planet Earth and beyond. And in experiencing these past lives, often holding some kind of key message or trauma, through that new perspective of coming in it from this life, entering into that past experience, an instantaneous and miraculous healing took place. Not to mention also downloading various information about these past lives and about the universe and reality beyond, such as the Great Awakening that's happening on the planet. All of that was kind of reported through all of these tens of thousands of cases of people all across the world that didn't know each other. These themes were coming up and these healings were taking place consistently. And so that's what this process is. So I was drawn to this, obviously. And the reason I was drawn to this is because sometimes, and in traditional psychology, although I have nothing against that kind of field at all, but it usually deals with just our childhood, just what's going on in this life. It doesn't necessarily acknowledge the possibility or presence of a past life and how traumas in that life could be embedded in your soul, in your mind, body, spirit complex, and thus be playing out in kind of neurotic and limiting patterns in this life, holding you back from your true potential, your true love and light, and your true manifesting of your dream life. Traditional psychology only focuses on the domain of your childhood, basically. And so I did a lot of inner work and shadow work, and what I found was I still had this kind of block. It's in particular in my solar plexus chakra or energy center, I felt this density, this real dense block that I just could not shake or get an insight behind or really set free, align, allow that energy and alignment to kind of flow out of that energetic center, which is obviously the one of creativity, expression, willpower, and being in your ultimate power. So there was that deep block there. And it made me think, it made me more curious, could this block be something I've been carrying from past life? And eventually I obviously got to a breaking point where I decided I was going to do a past life regression. And I got referred by a beautiful soul who told me this woman doing it, and the practitioner was also beautiful, and I felt it was aligned, so I did this. And this is where I'll tell you a bit about my experience and the kind of past lives I went into, what I saw, and then the insights I had. So the session, basically what happens in it is that you meet with the practitioner. I did this over Zoom. And so you talk a little bit about what you want to experience, your story going up, and then you also prepare a list of questions you want to ask your higher self. Because that's all part of this process. Is that the first portion of it is going into the past lives, and the last bit is segueing out of the past and into your higher self, which, as I said, is the completed version of you outside of all of these incarnations. It's outside of a time-bound physical location that's projecting into you and all lives as you go through an evolutionary journey. So you get to communicate with this higher self and ask these questions and download profound answers that can help you in this life. So there's kind of two phases. So after you talk at all, you frame the session, you then go into this meditative state. And so I was lying back, and you kind of just go through a very traditional kind of hypnotherapy type of things and meditation tapes, as I said on YouTube. You get relaxed and you start picturing various relaxing scene, and then it goes from there. And you kind of get taken through this visualization and journey, going deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you find yourself kind of surrendered into this trance state. Now, I experienced a little fear. I thought, or anxiety almost, apprehension, like I'm not letting go enough. My mind was still kind of active, and I was sort of afraid, what am I going to find out? I think a lot of us do experience that kind of apprehension, because we're like, well, what if I experience something really traumatic? Am I ready to deal with this? What if it gets dark? What if it doesn't work? Or what if I just waste the practitioner's time? And I wasn't even thinking about the money that I'd given and spent. I was more thinking, God, I want her to know that she's doing a great job by letting go. Let go. So my mind was kind of like not fully letting go. It was still a little bit active as this was happening. But that's quickly subsided, because all of a sudden I found myself in the lives. And the thing about this is it's not mere imagination. It's not even like visualization. In a common sense, like when we think about recalling a memory or visualizing the future, and we think about it in kind of a, just like, oh, I hazily saw an image. But when you really do powerful visualization, when you really tap into that feeling state in a profound way, such as manifestation teachers like Neville Goddard will talk about, it really is a state of consciousness you're entering into. And you're in a state of consciousness right now, so in a sense, a state of consciousness is a reality, is an experience of a present now moment. And so you can do that in the future. You can actually connect to it with such vividness that it becomes truth for you in that now moment. It becomes a true reality. And so that's how I would say this experience is like. It's like you enter into the state of consciousness. You're actually palpably, in all senses and dimensions of your being, entering into that experience at its strongest points. Now, I was quite open up, so maybe people don't always get it as strong, or maybe people get it stronger than me in terms of connecting to their past lives. But I felt it was quite strong because I'd done a lot of spiritual work, and I'm quite open-minded to this stuff and had awakenings and all this kind of stuff. So all of that was helping me just let go, even though at the start I had that apprehension. So I let go into this experience, and the first life I experienced was actually one in World War II in Germany. Now, it actually was like a montage flashing scene in this life. I would see flashes of memories just coming through, and I would feel the overall life, the presence of that person that I was. And I was just kind of downloading insights as it was all happening. Some of these insights that come through are they just download into you. In experiencing it, you almost recall it instantly as you're experiencing it. It's very strange. It's not like you're having to think about things you're not thinking at all. It's just happening, and you're downloading experiences, and it's all flooding back, kind of overwhelming you and saturating you. So I saw myself running in compact boots, and I saw myself along a line of soldiers, of German kind of soldiers and military people. I couldn't work out what I was, but I was not too high ranking, but I may have been some kind of officer in this Nazi German era. And what I sensed palpably around the state of consciousness of the collective was just this very dense, dreadful, depressed energy. Like this huge burden weight was on everyone's mind, this fearful, deflated energy. And I sensed it, how heavy it was, how heavy that environment was to exist in. And then I saw other memories, and I saw someone yell out, "Gustav, Gustav!" I remember looking as if someone was calling my name, so I found out my name. And I was just downloading all this information, and what I picked up on myself is that I was a good person at heart, and that I was deeply afraid of what was going on in the political regime, and I didn't have the courage to stand up, so I was sort of just going along. And that was causing me a lot of guilt and a lot of problems, and I was very unhappy. And so then I saw myself at a bar, kind of one of those old 1940s bars, in my uniform, just down doing shots of hard liquor, kind of trying to numb the pain I was experiencing throughout this horrific time that everyone was going through. And then the memory all of a sudden took me from all this kind of military stuff in action to this being out in the bar. It took me to a little house with a circular wooden table. And there were two people sitting at the table. And I was sort of taking it in. It was that very olden day style, very minimalistic, just nothing there, just the bare bones of a kitchen equipment and a table there. And I remember looking, and there was a woman and a little young boy, maybe between 5 and 7. That's quite precise. I don't know how old he was, but just a boy and a woman. And I remember I was taking it all in. I was quite overwhelmed. I was still feeling that density of the collective consciousness of that era, and how sad I was, etc. And it was quite overwhelming. And then I remember sort of scanning across like that and connecting eyes with the woman. And as she looked up, she was sort of looking up at the table, looked up at me like that. And as our eyes met, my heart exploded with this profound love, like a love you have for a loved one, and one you haven't seen for a long time. Just this pure, unconditional love for this being, and it just melted my heart, and I realized instantly that that was my wife in that life, and that was my son. And I then downloaded, instantly realized that something tragic had happened that tore us apart. Now, I wasn't actually shown how I died in this life, but something happened where I was either taken away, perhaps I died in the war, perhaps I committed suicide, perhaps I died in a prison after the war finished or something like that, but something ripped us apart, and there was a trauma with the loss of my wife and son in that life. But what shook me and what touched me was that love. It's just, and that's what makes this so real, because it's not just you're not just imagining something, you're connecting with another soul. With the purity and power of that of a loved one, your dearest loved one in this life. And you just connect and you just download a lifetime of that very vivid, deep emotional connection as you've experienced in this life. It's a beautiful thing. And so as that love happened, I felt this energy in my solar plexus kind of loosening up, and a huge wave of just acceptance and forgiveness of what I did in that life melting away. And then I went into the next life. And this is when it gets kind of crazy. So you may or may not believe that there are other beings or other life forms, other planets. Maybe that's quite overwhelming and open-minded to you. I know it was for me, as I said. But if you follow people like Bashar or Abraham Hicks, essentially they're channeling beings. I mean, Abraham is a higher dimensional entity, a collective kind of consciousness that she's channeling with and connecting with. So that's kind of a mainstream example of her channeling a presence. Or you could even think about channeling your higher self. And we all talk about higher self quite commonly, and tapping into that dimension of ourselves. That's you could say a being outside of this physical universe. And so whether you believe it or not, I experienced then lives on other planets as different beings. And so the first one I experienced was as this kind of creature. And before I tell you what happened in this life, I want you to know that the fear at this point had gone away. and I was just going with the flow. I felt very safe, and the practitioner's guiding you all along and knows exactly what they're doing. I mean, this is what they're trying to do, to take you and guide you in directions that are the most fruitful for your healing, and not to let you just go on some tangent to dark dimensions and you get lost there forever. It's not like that. You feel very safe. In fact, you're relaxing, you're floating back, just soaking it all in, so when you're very open to it. So it all feels like it's right. And in fact, it's almost like you could say your higher self is showing you bits of this, or your subconscious is showing you what you need to experience in this moment. So you kind of trust in that benevolence of what you've been shown for your highest good anyway. So anyway, back to this life. I experienced myself in this bizarre land, and I was this green creature. I had like big eyes, and there was a group of us, and we were all kind of waiting around. It's hard to describe, but we were all kind of waiting around. And what I downloaded again in this life was that we were all on trial for something. Something was going down, something bad. And I feared for my life in that planet. Now, I saw my hands were kind of like that, and my legs were bowed like that. So when I was walking, my legs were like that. And my foot was pointed at the front and back, almost like a boat-looking shape, like a battleship boat. You know, those pointed ones on the side that are perfectly symmetrical. My feet looked like that, and I was walking on the ground, doing that, looking around. I saw these yellow-green figures and eyes, and this one was a bit more blurry for me to take in. But I just sort of then jumped out of that, and I was thinking, what's going on? Then I went to another life where I was seeing this big green grass field, and there was this big long table, and I was standing at the top of the table with this guy with this beard. Now the thing about this was, this looked like a human land. It looked like a beautiful kind of palatial green grass. You know, in Alice in Wonderland, those big gardens where they play croquet on the grounds, and there's just this these white pillars on either side, and there's just this open grass, and it feels like a royal place. It was like that. And it was just this long table, and all of these beings were sitting along this table. And these beings were all in this uniform, and it was kind of this like jumpsuit uniform, and it had like a black visor over their face. So there was no face. They were all either behind the uniform, or maybe perhaps it was their body. But they were all sitting along this line, and I was standing at the front talking to them. I couldn't hear what I was saying. It was kind of in flashes again. And I looked, and I was talking with this guy that had, the eyes were wider apart, and he had this kind of cascading, curling orange beard that was kind of curling around. Something that if it was a human, it would be like one of those ridiculously impressive beards that would take years to grow and lots of like product to get it to style in that shape, and it was kind of splitting out the center, and it just looked very bizarre. And he didn't look quite right, as much as it just wasn't quite human, but perhaps some closely related type of reality. But in this life, I downloaded the idea that I was some kind of scheming person, someone that was in some society in which there were dark plans being done, and I felt this guilt and this power that I had in this life, and I was presenting it to all these beings that were invested in these various projects, and I just lived kind of a dark, seedy life in this life. And so then I jumped on to perhaps the most profound experience, and this was a very strange place indeed, very, very, very distant from Earth. To the point where it's difficult to describe, because the laws of physics and things like that just didn't seem to be functioning in the same way. In fact, there was no sense of time. There was no linear time. And it was a dark, dense place. But again, I didn't feel fear. Because interestingly, in this life, when I went into this dimension or this destination, this parallel reality, I was not a character. I was just pure awareness witnessing it all. Almost like the creator itself of this place permeated through everything, just witnessing it all from a non-local, non-focalized point. And in this place, it was dark. The atmosphere was all grey and black, and there was no sun, but there was somehow like a moonlight shimmer emitting through the whole place. And I was hovering over this kind of water, and the waves were flowing like this. You know, waves flow in one direction traditionally. These were almost like flowing back into each other. And it was completely black water, if you would call it water at all. And it was flowing like this. And inside the lake, there were these fins, almost like dolphin fins, flapping like this, back and forth, in the way, just coming up and down. And then I looked to the right of me and I saw there was this kind of land that looked like, almost like volcanic magma when it's the magma's all gone away and it's all become all dry and hard and rocky. It kind of looked like that kind of cracked rocky surface. And there were these beings that were just hiking up and down it, just hiking in a row, and they would just disappear and just come back again, disappear and just come at the start and just hike back again. And then what I downloaded in this place was a dimension, a timeless dimension, in which the purpose of this realm was for very dense and dark beings to go for a time being, to experience not torture, not pain, not necessarily suffering, but just the mindless repetition of eternally going through the same motions without end, just again and again and again, without reference point to anything. And so that was, in a sense, the darkness of this place. And at this point, my energy center lit up with this tense ball of energy was coming up, and I was realizing why I was holding on to this pain. It finally made sense. And I realized that as I talk about how we're all one, all spiritual beings, and we come from the one infinite creator, well, it was almost like I felt such guilt for creating this place because it affected me so badly whenever I lived there. I hope I'm not overwhelming you, because it was very quickly a beautiful realization. And the realization was that the beings that came here had free will. They were coming here out of choice to experience evolutionary journeys, and that they eventually did leave. And the practitioner guided me at this point, I feel so sad, so depressed, so disappointed with my own creation of this kind of place and the suffering, I suppose, of beings. What's the point of it all? I've lost sight of that. And then she said, what do you need to heal? And I got the recognition to see this as love in the scheme of the total creation and the purpose of it all. And as soon as I was able to look at that place and all those dark past lives on other planets and the one on Earth in Germany during the Nazi era, all of that kind of clicked, and I was able to just see that and love that. And as I loved that, I entered into a huge healing. In fact, it was almost like a huge just explosion of that darkness went away, and it was met with clarity. I just felt this healing, and I felt that peace, and it all made sense. You know, in telling this to you, a part of me is almost feeling a little bit misaligned right now, because I don't want to set anyone up for expectations that they're going to go to dark realms, or what is this? Was this a hellish place? All of that kind of thing, and then that's going to scare you. In fact, I was never scared. It was dark, dense energy being purified, and that's a beautiful thing. I also know people that only went to heavenly realms instantly. In fact, all their past lives were full of joy, just floating around in higher dimensions, astral planes, just pure love, light, and joy. This is just a very individual experience, and right here and now, I'm not scared, I'm not traumatized, I'm not scarred by this at all. In fact, I'm so grateful for it to happen, and I made peace with it all, and that's dramatically affected my life in the present. So I just want to put that out there, because my intention is not to give you too much away or say it's going to be like this for you, but just to authentically recall my experience. So that disclaimer aside, we then spoke to my higher self, and this is where I asked questions about my family, about my present incarnation, and what I'm here to do on Earth. And I got the clear message that I'm here to help in the great awakening of humanity, which we're currently going through as we shift out of ego or third density into fourth density, levels of consciousness and beyond, which is one of love and beingness and interconnectedness. So I'm here to serve in that. I clarified various relationships with my family. Why did I incarnate with this group of souls? And found out that I shared many past lives with those family members, and also the purposes of some of those harder relationships I've had with people in my life. Understanding why that was chosen, and actually tapping in and speaking to the higher self of those souls, and being assured that beyond this time-space reality, everything is eternally okay. And that we are all loving, beautiful beings, no matter what's happened to me or to anyone in this life, and how kind of difficult and traumatic that can be at the time. There's sort of a greater perspective in all of those soul contracts and experiences that I've had in this life. So that really helped me. And then there were some things about my purpose, my business, my future. So I've been kind of trying to embody that as best as I can coming out of that, and to just express from my heart more, and to live and embody love, because that's what I feel, and all of us feel in some way or another, the calling to anchor in and to express in some way. So that was really helpful to gain that clarity. And then that was it. I felt a peace coming out of it, and an afterglow for many, many days after that experience. And it felt almost, I've told this to so many people in my actual life that it feels like I've told this so many times, but it felt like to go into those other lives, especially the ones not on planet Earth, but even the planet Earth one, helped me get a really dimensionally rich perspective. It was almost like this itch in the back of my head got scratched, and I didn't even know it was there. And so it just, when you come back in, you're living your life, a part of you is like recalling behind the stage. It's like you look behind the curtain, you see the actors standing there, the fourth wall's been broken, and in a sense, that may sound weird or threatening even, but actually I've experienced it as peace. Because you understand the context of this more, and you can be more joyful and lighthearted and free, and you feel more integrated, just flowing with life and appreciating where you find yourself in. Knowing that you've done this perhaps many times, and you perhaps will come back, or you'll go somewhere else, and that it's a wonderful evolutionary journey, and you just get this dimensionally rich perspective of that in your experience. And then spiritually and emotionally, I found ever since I've been in greater alignment. And that is where you're just flowing with peace and just the acceptance in greater degrees. And sometimes that lasts throughout the whole day, undisturbed and uninterrupted. It's pristine sense of peace and harmony, acceptance and knowing. And it's just beautiful, and it's priceless, really, a gift. And so I've been entering into those states more, and just that dense block that was there seems to have dissipated significantly. And that's also helped me in my spiritual life through meditation, various techniques like that. Just go higher, go deeper, whatever way you want to say it. But just to ascend into a non-dual unity, a union consciousness, much more powerfully, and in that you download more love and light and joy. Because normally I'd feel blocked, I'd feel fear, and I didn't know what that is, and I just couldn't ascend past that block. And now that barrier is just gone, so you just go up, and you realize that all along it was okay to go higher, but also you needed to heal. And this was one of those processes in that healing journey. So that was beautiful. And then physically, although I'm really grateful to say I'm in great health and don't have any serious health problems, I have a slight gym injury, and I've noticed that has cleared up, and have been in perfect health in my physical body, and that knee issue isn't there. And finally, with my eyesight, I wear glasses. I'm not sure if anyone knows that, but I do wear glasses because I'm short-sighted, so I need to, if I'm watching TV or anything of that nature. I was over at my dad's place, and we were watching a movie, and I had my glasses on, then I took them off, and I was going, what? That TV is almost the exact same as when I've got glasses on. Normally it's very, very blurry, but I was going like that. I was rubbing my eyes. I was going, no, I can see it. And Dad goes, I think it's just the 4K TV, Tommy. And I went, maybe that's it. Then I went back to the home, and I'm really noticing my eyes feel sharper, genuinely sharper vision. And so I'm going, what's this going on here? What's this to do with? And perhaps as I'm eating well, perhaps I'm just manifesting better health through all my normal practices, or perhaps this past life, through this kind of more profound, deeper healing, it kind of has propelled, as they call them, spontaneous remissions or healings that almost seem miraculous and defy all of what science teaches us. I know it does for sure. But I've experienced a definite notice and shift in my vision. But those were just a bonus, and I'm not saying that this definitely is that case, but I looked it up, and then on the list of physical benefits it said those such things have been reported, like eyesight just getting better. So I'm just putting it out there as what I experienced, not necessarily saying one way or another that it absolutely was this, but I'm really happy, obviously. And as I said, I never went in with a physical healing. That was never my intention. It was the emotional and spiritual stuff mainly, so this is just a nice bonus. And finally, from all of these new levels of integration, I've just been able to be more productive, more aligned, have more clients come in, more abundance in friendships, relationships coming in. My business is doing great. That seems to just taken up to another notch in terms of my creative output, my expression, which is that block was preventing me from really feeling like I was genuinely accessing that ability to manifest that which I want, connect to my dream reality, feel worthy of it, and then expand towards it. That is definitely shifted. So I want to also make this fair-minded. Is the block still there? Do I feel entirely healed? The answer is no. I still have more healing to do, and that block has come back up, but it's a lot more manageable. I will say that. It's more manageable, it's less, and even when it comes up, I'm able to heal it because there's a greater love there in my beingness itself to then heal that, purify it, and move higher and higher up towards transcending it entirely. So it was a huge boost, but it's not the answer to everything, and I don't think it ever claims to be this process. So that's my entire experience. I hope you enjoyed me sharing that with you. It's a little bit of a different video, so hopefully it wasn't too out there. Once again, I really appreciate you listening if you've got this far and your open-mindedness, because I know this definitely was not something I was ready for, even as little as a few months ago. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to have one-on-one coaching with me, check out my website, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.